Welcome to Tales on the Towpath, the podcast where every mile tells a story.
We're two runners who spend a lot of time out here on the C&O Canal Towpath, talking about training, racing, and everything that happens between the miles.
From early morning runs to the stories that keep us moving.
This is where endurance meets inspiration, one step, one tail at a time.
So lace up and join us on the path, because every trail has a story, and this one's ours.
Oh, wait. Time out, Chris. What are you drinking? What are you pouring?
Hey, you're not supposed to rat me out. I'm starting tonight pre-gaming with just a Bud Light, but I've got a better beer for when we get into the interview.
All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. I'm Adam Lowe.
And I'm Chris Earl. And with us tonight, we have our returning special guest host, Katie Lowe.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Katie. Adam had told me earlier this week that you might not be able to join us this week, and I was wondering if you were holding out for that salary that he said you weren't going to get.
Oh, that's a good question. I had to play around, play hard to get, have him beg a little bit so he knew like where we stood and where the ratings for the podcast stood and all that. So I had to at least tease him like I wasn't going to come on, but
That
I
makes
got
sense.
it for everybody.
Well, what's funny about that, Chris, is that as soon as you mentioned it the first time, she acted like her computer froze and she didn't know what was going on. So,
You surprised me with that. I didn't know I'd be called out so soon on the podcast.
all right. Well, before we get to our very last episode in February about running couples, and we bring our guest on today, we have a couple of things that we wanted to talk about. First, I am running the Wilmington Marathon on Saturday, and Katie is going to be running the Wilmington Half Marathon on Saturday, the one in North Carolina, not Delaware. So I make sure I get that right before I continue. But I've run the marathon the last 2 years, and it's the 2 years ago I surprised myself with how well I did. I ran 251, and then last year I ran 257. This year I have no idea what really to expect. I mean, the goal is to go under 3 hours. I did, let's see, like 3 speed work sessions back in December, and then we did a beer mile on January 1st, and then I did an indoor track mile on January 3rd. And I don't think I've run a marathon paced mile since, with our January challenge of 500 miles and then the February challenge of the backyard style. So it's been a lot of slow miles for me, or not slow, but I mean, definitely not marathon pace. So it's going to be interesting when I go out there, and the first mile I try to crank out a 6:40, and then I'll just try to hold that for as long as I can. And I told Katie if we get to 3 hours and 30 minutes in the marathon mark, then she can go ahead and start drinking beer without me at the finish line. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a lot of fun. I didn't give myself any room to DNF. Obviously, I have a goal of 300 miles for the month again. And the way I have it mapped out, I think at the finish line, I'll be at 301 miles. So if I stop early, I just have to rest and then go run later that night. So it makes no sense. So I can't stop early during the race. Katie, what about you? What are you looking forward to for the race? What are your goals, expectations, etc.?
Well, the Wilmington, North Carolina course is a really cool course. It's road the whole way. It's a point to point. So you actually start at the pier in Wrightsville Beach and run roads the whole way. It's pretty straight shot, flat. The biggest inclines are ramps where you're changing routes. So the course is really runner friendly. 2 years ago, I actually showed up, had no expectations. It was a just for fun race, and I went out and ran my half marathon PR, which then stood until the Buzz Sawyer half marathon just last fall that I've talked about on the podcast. So it was it's easy to get caught up with the crowd. There's a lot of people around you the whole time when you're running, at least at my pace. And the half marathon shares the course with the marathon runners almost the entire way. It's literally until about, I think, 12 and a half miles, almost to 13 maybe. Course is just slightly long. Both the last 2 years, I got just under 12.3, I'm sorry, 13.3 miles. So kinda gotta adjust, expectations for just maybe about by a minute of what, you would normally think of for 13.1. However, this year, I'm kinda going in, I wanna go in with the same attitude I've had both other years. Really no expectations as far as time. I've been training on a 5K training plan, just throwing in some longer long runs than I would do if I was truly just going for a 5K. So keeping with some long runs, but pretty much doing short speed, I don't know what to expect. I think I'm just gonna go out and try to hit close to, like, my PR pace. About 4 or 5 miles in, I'll reassess, see if I'm feeling good, keep going for it. If I'm not, back off and just enjoy the day. But I did tell my running friends in my FAFO group, if all the wheels fall off, my D goal, the last goal that I have, other than to just finish, is to look for where are the beer aid stations? Where are they serving beer? Prior to finishing.
Should be pretty easy to find them because I'll probably be standing there with them. So you'll be able to see me, see me at mile 11 and a half at the beer tent already. Last shout out for Wilmington is, yeah, we usually sign up the day after the race. So it's a little bit cheaper. And then we kind of just know that we're going back. And then this year, my son Ryan is going to run his first half marathon. So that'll be interesting to see how he handles the distance because he's going to go out pretty fast and hard, as I would expect any 16-year-old boy to do, as well as being my son. That will work against him, I'm sure, as well for pacing. So should be
So do
pretty
you wanna tell
interesting.
everybody what his goal is?
Yeah, he said his goal was to go 1 hour and 30 minutes. And I said, all right, let's get it. So we'll see what happens. I mean, you got to have good goals and you got to have hard goals. And he's going to find out one way or the other if that was achievable or not. So,
Oh, yeah, I think this is gonna be fun to see what happens with him because I do truly believe he's either gonna crush it, and he could probably, with his speed that he's been working on in cross country and indoor track, he probably has that in him, but does he know enough about the longer distance? I pretty much told Adam he's either gonna be really close to hitting that or I'm gonna pass him while he's walking at mile 9 because he will have totally mispaced, underestimated the distance and how hard it would be towards the end, and he'll be walking it in.
I was thinking he's either going to crush it or you'll find him at the root beer aid stations along the way.
oh, yeah,
Well,
that's
chocolate
right.
milk is his drug of choice, but
Yeah, yeah. Well, so Chris, that's what we have going on this weekend. I'm slowly tapering for that, and Katie's doing the same. So, but what are you doing? How's your week of training going? Coming back from the 12-hour challenge you just did, and looking forward to finishing up February.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Tonight I got out and got down on the towpath, which was only the second time since the snow, and it felt so good to be down there tonight. The sun was setting over the river. It was so pretty. It was quiet. I think I saw one other person down there, so it was a pretty nice evening, and glad to be back. Glad we didn't get that snow this weekend that they got up in the Northeast, and hopefully we're well on our way to getting closer to spring here and some more normal training. But for this coming weekend, I think all I've got is I'll probably do a long run on Saturday or Sunday, something to just kind of get some base work in, getting myself ready for the 100K in April.
Sounds good. Maybe on Saturday or Sunday, you and Samir and a few of the other guys can get together and run on the towpath while I'm out of town and keep it warm for me for when I get back in March.
That sounds good. Maybe I can get Luke out and get him to restart his run streak at day one again.
Day one. I've never seen one person have so many day ones before. I'm just kidding, Luke. Love you, buddy.
All right, everybody. So, as Adam mentioned a little bit earlier, this is part 4 of our 4-part series on running couples. And tonight we are joined by two of our good Tulo friends, Heidi Paulus and Carrie Quinn. Welcome, guys.
Thanks.
Hey, so why don't we get started? And Heidi, I'll start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into running, and then we'll transition the same questions over to Carrie.
Sure, sounds good. So I am a late to life runner. I am 49. I think I'm 49 this year. Carrie's nodding. So I started running about 10 years ago ish. So 2016 is when I started running, and I did not grow up an athlete at all. I was a theater kid. I did a little bit of dance and gymnastics, but running was not something that was part of my vocabulary. So, outdoor person, I love to hike, I love to kayak. Just being outside was definitely part of my life, but I never identified as a runner. 2016, I think I was crowdsourced into running. There are some folks where I work that were big runners, and so I kind of jumped in with both feet into, I think it was called the hard cider run. It was like a trail run ish thing, and somebody signed me up for their team, and I was like, sure, I can do this, and went across the street to a local park near where I lived and ran 3/4 of a mile and walked back to my car crying because I just didn't know what I got myself into. So, but because I was registered, I was all in and accomplished that race. And next 10 years, I did a lot of running, but at the same time, my life circumstances changed, my body changed, I gained weight, I lost weight, my pace fluctuated. I truly identified as a back of the packer for almost all of those 10 years. So I know what it's like to have um, your confidence impacted by your pace. But something that was really clear to me was that I wanted to choose, I wanted to choose my heart. It was hard to run, but it was also hard not to run. So I continued to explore different race distances. I very quickly did my first two half marathons. The Frederick half was my first half marathon, and then moved up to the marathon. I know Katie, you did Rehoboth as well. So Rehoboth was my first marathon, which was a blessing and a curse because Carrie knows this well. There were times on that race where I was by myself with no other runners around me, and I just kept on telling myself, "Well, you're either in last place or first place." So it was really it was definitely a mental challenge. And I remember crossing that finish line. Number one, it was the first time anybody ever had a sign for me at a race, and so that was amazing. And as I was coming up to the finish line, I started crying, and then I'm, like, trying to get myself together, and the people, the very few handful of people that were still left at the finish line were like, "Oh, no, girl, you let it out because you earned that." So yeah, at that point, I was a marathoner.
That's awesome. You mentioned that I've run Rehoboth. Adam's run it too. Rehoboth was my second marathon, and between my first and my second marathon, there was like 17 or 18 years. So I thought my first one was my one and done, and then Rehoboth was my second one, but I jumped into JFK 2 weeks beforehand, so when I crossed the finish line, I was also crying, but it was I not out of pride, which I think is why I'm interpreting why you had tears. You did something really hard and you accomplished that goal, and mine was because I had literally thought I was never getting closer to the finish line. I was about 100 meters away and, like, I don't think I'm actually getting closer. I don't think I'm ever gonna finish this. That's how bad that race was, and it wasn't the course, and it wasn't the race. It's a wonderful course and a wonderful race, but boy.
There was a point, though, where you're running away from the finish line and you can hear it, and that was really hard.
Yes, I think you're talking about, like, when you go down Flag Alley, it's this really cool part of the race, but you are headed back towards home, and there are 6 miles left, but instead of continuing towards
Yes.
the finish line, you turn away from the finish line, and you go down it's almost like the towpath type of area, but and it is really cool because they have music and a lot of people down there, an aid station, and they're calling out people's names and stuff with all these flags just everywhere. But just that mental aspect of moving
Yeah,
away
it
from the
was it
finish
was
line,
tough for
I think
sure.
we talked about
Um,
that before, Heidi.
after Rehoboth, though, decided that I was going to be all in on this marathon business, and I registered for Wine Glass, and I followed a training plan called Hanson's, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but it's essentially you run every day and you run on fatigued legs. So it's basically how Chris and Adam train for everything, but at the time, it was really new to me, and it made such a huge difference for me that year, and I ended up having a 1-hour PR in the marathon for Wine Glass, which, my first marathon was 6.5 hours. As I said, I'm a back of the packer, so my Wine Glass was 5.5, and that is still currently my marathon PR, and I'm very proud of that effort. So yeah, then I got it in my head that I was gonna do all of the world majors. So I started putting in for all of the lotteries. And because I have the craziest luck, I got into New York the first time I put in. So I was lucky enough to run the New York City Marathon, which was, and I don't know if any of you guys have run that, but it is an amazing experience, but it is a logistical nightmare because you have to get transported onto Staten Island.
No.
And then, the waves are so huge that I had to get on Staten Island at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't start until 11:30. Like I was there for hours and hours. And so like trying to figure out your fueling and
Oh
keeping yourself
my.
warm and not using the battery on your phone, and it was insane. And then by the time I'm done, it's dark. I finish in Central Park in the dark, and then had to walk like a mile and a half, carried to meet you at the end of that. It was crazy. I don't think I would ever do it again. It's definitely a one and done, but it was an amazing experience. And then again, like I said, I got into the Chicago Marathon first try, and that was the end of 2023. At this point now, I've met Chris Earl. Chris is making a smiling at me because I remember telling Chris that I was doing the Chicago Marathon, and I knew he was tracking me on that race, and that gave me a little bit of anxiety because I ended up having gut issues, unfortunately, with my nutrition, and wasn't able to eat anything I had trained with or planned. So I was legitimately taking food from anybody who would give me food off the side of that marathon. I remember eating an apple. Who eats an apple while they're running a marathon? Yeah, I did. Carrie and my aunt sagged me for that race. The Chicago Marathon is amazingly spectator friendly. Carrie, I don't know if you want to jump in and talk about that at all, but I will say that having them there was truly amazing, and it was one of those times where I wore my name on my shirt, and so you feel like an elite marathoner every step of the way because of just the crowds cheering for you. So that was amazing. But all of that to say that by the time I finished Chicago, I was a little bit broken. I was dealing with some health issues that I couldn't get to the bottom of. While I was training for Chicago, I had picked up quite a bit of extra weight that we couldn't figure out where that was coming from. My doctor at the time was no help. She kept telling me to eat less and exercise more, which was, I didn't know how to pull that off because I was training for a marathon. So made it through Chicago and just really needed a reset. And I was so lucky to find a doctor who was willing to listen to me and actually do some tests and get to the bottom with what was happening. And so 2024 was like my health reset. Figured out what was going on. It was combination hormones, autoimmune issue. And I had to cut back on my mileage. So I really dialed back my running that year and committed to running no more than a 10K for any distance, and focused on strength training, and decided I was going to become a triathlete. So I learned how to swim in 2024, which was incredibly difficult because I don't like to get water in my face. So the first time I ever got into the pool with my friend Susan and asked her to, she's an amazing swimmer, and asked her to give me a lesson, she looked at Carrie and was like, does she not put her face in the water? And Carrie's like, yeah, she doesn't put her face in the water. So I took some swim lessons and got that sorted. But I will tell you that the triathlon, the swim was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like even now, as in, having accomplished some ultra marathons, that swim was, I will go down as one of the hardest things I've ever done, because I don't know if you know this, but you can get motion sick while you're swimming. which happened to me. So not only did I panic because I couldn't touch the bottom of the lake, I got motion sick. And by the time I got out, I think I was one of the last people out of the water. And when I got out of the water, Carrie said I wasn't walking straight. I wasn't making complete sentences. And she talked about maybe not even letting me get on the bike. That's what the rough shape I was in. But I sat down to change into my shoes, and I heard the announcer say, if you're just getting out of the water, you just swam half a mile. And I looked at her and I was like, yeah, I did. I just swam half a mile. And it was this mental reset, because I got out of the water just saying that was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I got on the bike, and I got on that bike, and I just got my legs under me, and I passed so many cyclists. And as I passed them, I said in my head, you're an amazing swimmer. You're an amazing swimmer. Because all of this was all women, and all these women swam that faster than me, better than me, stronger than me. But I nailed that bike ride. And then I had my first ever sub 30-minute 5K after getting off the bike. So I loved that experience. It was so gratifying and just so hard. And I have so much respect for triathletes and just how difficult that is. So that's how I finished 2024. And then 2025 was the year of the half marathon. I was going to get an amazing PR. And I think I set that my goal was going to be sub 2 hours. And Carrie and I went to St. Michael's to run the St. Michael's half with a goal. And as you guys experienced at the Lock to Lock last year, we had a really bad weather day with just crazy humidity, and we both just didn't have the race that we were expecting or that we wanted, and came out of that kind of like, okay, we're going to reset our goals for the year. But somebody mentioned to me, hey, there's this race coming up next week called the last one standing. You guys should come check it out. You trained for a half, just come. You could do like 4 backyards and have a great time. And and so while I was there, I just, the vibe of that race, and talking to some of the runners there, and gentlemen sitting in front of me telling me I need to go run fire on the mountain. If you run fire on the mountain, so hard. It's so much harder than JFK. And I met so many of the too low runners that day, and I don't know, something sparked at the backyard at the last one standing that kind of drove my entire rest of my 2025. So out the window went my half year of the half marathon, and it was the year of Heidi becoming, an ultra runner. So I'm gonna pause there, because I know that was much longer than anybody expected it to be.
No, that was great. Chris, do you want to go back and talk about the Chicago Marathon first before we move on?
Oh, sure. Heidi, it's funny you mentioned that you had anxiety, a little bit of anxiety because you knew I was following you. I agree with you. That can be so tough when you've got folks at home who are watching, and if things start to go sideways or not quite to the standard you're hoping for, it can be a little bit disheartening, right? And, on the other end, your friends that are out there watching you, like they're right there suffering with you, like not in the same way, but they know that means when those times aren't coming in the splits that you wanted, that things have gone bad and that you're suffering, and that, they're sending all the positive energy they can, just to try to get you back. But I do remember that day, and I remember thinking, oh
Yeah.
boy,
I had a
something went
great tour of
wrong.
the porta potties of the Chicago.
And
Yeah, I know, like probably a month or two before Chicago, I think is when the Chris first mentioned you, Heidi, to me, and he was telling me about his coworker who was going to run Chicago and all this stuff. And he sounds like a really nice guy right now, but he was texting me while you were running Chicago, and he was like, "Is she ever going to finish? I don't know what she's doing out there."
I know.
Hey, I'm just joking. No, but it
Only
was
something
good.
I would say if Samir was having a bad race,
Oh,
but
oh
not,
yeah, that's
yeah.
true.
No,
That's
no,
right.
no. The other thing I was going to say, Heidi, is when you described the experience you had at New York, that is all the convincing I need that I do not want to ever try to compile all the world majors. Like that is not my idea of a good time. To think about you sat there long enough that two waves of runners could have finished a full marathon.
No, and it's definitely one of the races that's not super friendly to the back of the pack runners, you know. I know that there's a number of the world majors that are super friendly and there's others that are a little more strict and, you know, letting the folks just sit there for that long and then you know it's almost a 24-hour day for some of these folks by the time they're done. You know, I don't even remember what my finish time was for New York now. I think it was probably like 6 hours or something like that, but it is incredibly logistically difficult.
And just the crowd support, right, is not going to be there for folks who have started 6, 7 hours after the lead pack, right? Like,
There are groups that make it a point to be at the finish line for New York, which was really nice.
okay.
And Carrie spectated, so she was there for in a number of the crowds. And I had a whole group of folks, I'm not kidding, that traveled from Frederick to come up and support me for that race. That was pretty great. But that one that one and Chicago, the spectator support is pretty great, but they do start cleaning up some of the aid stations towards the back and whatnot. And that's not great. There have been some races where, there's no water, there's no hydration or food left. That's pretty disheartening. But the vibes at New York are fun and it's definitely a party, but I would recommend Chicago over New York 100% just because of the logistics.
So, all right, Carrie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into running?
Sure. So I was an athlete through high school, through college. I got out of college and I don't know, got a couple extra degrees and then joined the army. So I spent about 9 years in the army. So for a solid chunk of my life, I've had somebody telling me to go run. Like I had to do it to do the other things. So towards the end, actually, towards the end of my army career is when I really started running, I'll say for fun and not just because somebody was making me do it. So I've always loved being outside. I've always loved being on the trails. It's kind of that happy place for me, that quiet place. I'm usually in my day to day life, usually kind of inundated. I'm usually in a fast paced environment, no matter my job, and that trail life, that outdoors, is what allows me just to breathe for a second. I'm actually kind of a pretty quiet person, so in my day job, in my day life, there's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of peopling. That's a little bit much for me. So I like to be out on the trails and just be quiet and just be kind of within myself. But I was always just kind of hiking. Heidi ended up doing in 2017 ended up doing a Ragnar, and I was like, yeah, I'll come give you guys a little bit of medical support, a little bit of SAG support. I don't know what this crazy thing is that you're doing, but sure, I'll come do that. And so I did it, and I was like, these guys are like running on a trail in the middle of the night. Like, I don't know, this seems crazy, but after that, after that experience, the next time I kind of went out on the trail for a hike, I was like, let's see if I could run this. I was in jeans and I had a backpack on, but whatever. Let's see if I can run this. Like, what is this trail running all about? Oh yeah, that was an experience. That's fantastic because I love nothing more than like speed. I don't. I've never enjoyed running up to that point because I've always been on the road, and that is just left foot, right foot, just get through it. And then you get in your head. Like the longer you're out there, the more you're in your head. You guys all having done the JFK 50 is mind blowing to me because you're not listening to anything. Like that's hours, kind of just in your head. So the thing that I love about trail running is like you got to make decisions, right? You have to focus on what you're doing, or you're going to face plant and just shred your face, right? So that's what I love about trail running. I can go fast. I have to jump around. I have to be agile. I can't get too much in my head because something's gonna go wrong. So it keeps me focused and in the moment rather than like, oh, this is what I should have said to that one person for that thing, or hey, when I get to work on Monday, I got to do these 16 things in this order, and I hope nobody messes that up, right? I got to be in the moment right there doing the thing. And surprisingly, it brings my blood pressure down and not up. But I love that split second decision making that comes with trail running that you don't find, or I don't find on the road. So I was like, all right, I can get behind this trail running thing. This is kind of cool. So I ended up doing a Ragnar, and then somehow, and I don't know, Heidi probably knows this story, and it was probably her, but somehow we got signed up for a 50K, the Yeti 50K, and I think the longest I had ran at that point was maybe a 10K. So I did a half marathon in April, a half marathon in May, and a 50K in June. So that was my progression into ultra running. I've never done a marathon. I don't know yet. You just skip it. It's fine. So, so I did that. I did that 50K. I really liked it. It was a huge high when I got to the end of it. Well, first of all, it was a trail 50K, which means it was like 32 or 33 miles. Like you didn't end at 31 miles. And so I was like, I don't know. I'm supposed to be at the finish line and I'm not there. And what is this? But anyway, at the end, it was great, right? Like, I can't believe I just did that huge thing. That was completely unexpected for me because I'd done a half marathon to that point. So it was a little bit at that point, a little bit of like, hey, what else can I do? I did a couple other just small local trail races, and I placed in those in my age group. So I was like, this is kind of fun. This is something I could do. So I don't know. I've done a few other things. So I did the 4-state challenge when I first got to Maryland, but I rucked it, right? Like I hiked it. I didn't run it because I wasn't a trail runner then. And I would love to do it again. And I know Chris and I have talked about going back out for the 4-state challenge again. And I'd love to do it again as a trail runner. Hiked it in pretty good time. I had, when I was in the Army, I rucked the Boston Marathon route. So full packing gear, did that twice. So I had done some, like, I don't know probably what people would think are like crazy things, but in terms of actually running like for joy, that didn't come until 2018 or 2019. And then I just started finding things like, what can I challenge myself with? So I did the Maryland Grand Fondo cycling race, which was probably the hardest thing I've done. It's like the first climb is like this 5 mile just straight up climb. That was crazy. I did 100-miler cycling race, not running. And then, like Heidi said, like in this last year, we kind of hooked up with you guys, and there's a community there, right? There's like just fun, right? So last one standing, that was fun. We had come out and seen Chris run it, I think the year before, and then somehow he talked us into it. I'm like, sure. Could go wrong. What could go wrong other than like a mudslide? It's fine. And then yeah, so Fire on the Mountain, I was a little bit hesitant there. I wasn't sure. While I don't love climbing, I super love descending. So I wasn't sure at first, but I was like, all right, we got to do this. We're going to do this. It's fun. I had the time of my life at Fire on the Mountain. I loved it so much. That was easily my favorite race of 2025, probably of the last few years. I loved it a lot. So I don't know. So that's kind of my journey. That's my story. I think right now it's just take pressure off, right? What can I do that's just fun? Not because somebody's telling me to do it, because I have to do it, but what can I do that's in the environment that I want it to be in, which is like, get me into the woods and turn me loose. And then what can I do just to challenge myself for the sake of feeling alive and feeling like, holy crap, I just did that thing. So that's kind of where I'm at in my running journey, or my I'd call it more my adventure journey, but trail running definitely a big part of that.
I really love that perspective of like wanting to challenge yourself and chasing like the fun or just a really hard challenge, because at the end, when you come across that finish line, it just means so much more when you did something really, really hard. And I think that's something that we all love here, and that's why we're doing all these things. But I also found it super interesting that I mean, it truly takes all types, this world, right? And especially the world of running, because everything you love about trail is what I hate about trail. Uh, Everything you hate about running the road is what I love about running the road. I love just being able to turn my mind off and let it wander while I'm running. But honestly, I do like the trail because you have to concentrate on it, so I really identified with everything you said about that, but after so long, it is mentally exhausting for me to still have to concentrate, and then what has happened to me, exactly what you said, you take your mind off of it for just a second, and that's when a root comes out and grabs your foot and you're on your face. So I usually can tolerate the trail for a couple hours, but then those really long trail races, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, can someone send a helicopter to save me? I can't concentrate like this anymore. I need the road." But I loved your perspective on it, but it was exactly opposite of what I love and hate about running.
I think actually when I finished Fire on the Mountain, I think the first thing I said to Chris was, "Oh my god, that was so hard. I loved it so much."
Yeah, that is a perfect response to that race too.
And because that's an out and back course, right? We saw each other a couple of times, and I just remember every time I saw you, you had a giant smile on your face, and I'm like, okay, I think she's enjoying this one. She's having a good day.
I know for a fact that you did not get 31 miles for that 50K either. So
Didn't.
I was gonna when you were talking about that. I remember the first time I ran the 25K for Fire on the Mountain, and I was running with this gentleman, and we're cruising along, and we're coming along the creek bed just before you start up that last climb, and he looks at his watch and he goes, "We're at 25K. We should be done." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Have you met Adam?
I think that first 50K I did, I think, and Heidi can correct me, but I think it ended up being 32 or 33. It's similar to Fire on the Mountain, where you're like, "Whoa, we're a little long here." Yeah, that's all right, right? Because once you've come off of red, and now you're just on that gravel road, like just drive it home, just get home, right? So, so
All right. Well, thanks, guys. That was really good getting to know a little bit about you and some of your race history. But why don't you talk a little bit about it? It sounds like you've come at running from very different places, how you started running together and what that was like when you first started running. Because I'm guessing based on your backgrounds that maybe there was an adjustment period there. So,
Sure. No, it's a great question. And I always kind of described it as Carrie and I are adventurers. As you could tell from her description of her background, she is all in on every adventure. So if I say, let's go do this crazy thing, she's usually like, let's go. So that's pretty great. But up until very recently, our abilities weren't always well matched. So like we could cycle together, hike together, and do, things like that, kayaking, paddleboarding, but running was not something that we were ever really well matched for. So we always ran at the same time, but not necessarily together. So I would say for sure that our running journey was definitely parallel, but it was never, exactly the same. So I think that that's a really good testament for just, being able to have a relationship that's based in activity and support, but not necessarily always having to do it together. So I can remember last year, maybe, us being able to like go out for runs and running together next to each other and having conversations and being like, wow, this is what this is like. This is amazing. Now, I mean, her perspective might be slightly different because I do tend to run my mouth quite a bit, but yeah, that has been amazing. I always thought I was a solo runner because I just didn't have anybody who necessarily ran my pace, and so being able to run with somebody is definitely an entirely different experience, because not all marriages are the same, but we really enjoy spending time together. Like we want to be together as much as we can. So being able to just go out for long runs on the weekend now, and sometimes we put our earbuds in and we'll listen to music, but for the most part we're just either quiet together or we're having conversations. So yeah, it has definitely been an evolution, and I am so happy with being able to go out and go for bike rides together and go for runs together and do all these things, not just at the same time, but actually left foot right foot next to each other.
I think a lot of that too is a testament to the work that Heidi has put in terms of pace and just learning. I don't It drives her crazy. I just go run. Like I don't pacing and all that, like I don't know. I just go do the thing. Again, because I really like trails, and so a lot of that, quite frankly, let's be honest, there's a lot of hiking involved there, and then you just run as fast as you can down the other side. That's cool. But like on the roads, if she wants to go a certain pace, like I have to go off of what she says, because I just go run. But she's right. So when we first started running at the same time, not necessarily running together, but starting at the same time and then finishing at the same place, it's just because our paces were so different. But she's put in so much work. She's done so much and so now we're at this place where she's exceptional, and so we can run together. So that's good. That's not. I hope that doesn't come off sounding like I'm exceptional or something. I'm not. I've just done the same thing over and over. I don't know, but we're at this comfortable place where we can run together. And I think, and Heidi can disagree with me, but the last couple months we've gone out to Antietam a couple times. It's gorgeous out there, and just forever hills and whatever. And she and I have ran it together, literally side by side together, and it's just fun, right? You just have that. Well, first of all, it's fine that she talks the whole time because then it keeps me out of my head. But but it's fun because it's hard. Antietam is stupid. Antietam is stupid hard, right? Like, when is this hill gonna end? And so it's fun to do something hard together, because it's at the end of it, you're like, that was hard. That was awesome. We are amazing. Let's go get coffee. So,
So I have to say that I have noticed that you all have been out at Antietam recently, because when I look at the leaderboards for the segments, I have noticed both of your names on there and creeping up on some of those segments, and I'm like, are they going to get into this,
It would be hard for us.
Antietam
It's a
segment
long
war that
drive for
is
us to get
currently
out there,
happening in the Tulo
unfortunately.
community?
wait, time now, because I didn't know about this leaderboard thing. Tell me more about it. Where?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So if you pick the right segment and you're willing to just go back and forth on it, I promise you will get a nasty gram from Carisha Schneider.
Okay, all right.
Because she wants to own every segment out there.
No, I don't think I could own segments. Maybe for that 5 minutes until she comes out and it's like, I'm gonna erase that. But that's good. That's fun. That's fun competition.
All right. Are we good to dive back into, I guess, 2025 now? I was going to ask, I looked at Ultra Sign Up and I was looking at some of your results, Heidi, and I noticed there was a big gap from 2021 to 2025. But you already answered my question because you turned into Marathon Woman and they're not on Ultra Sign Up. So you already took care of that question that I had about that missing 4 year piece there. With Last One Standing, let's get into that one a little bit. What was your strategies that you had going in to that race?
A Last One Standing is definitely geared, in my opinion, and I know there are a lot of opinions on this, towards somebody like who is paced like me. My comfortable pace tends to be 10, 10, 20, and that's a sweet spot for me for the last one standing. So I that was just my strategy, is I'm just going to go in, I'm just going to be myself and just run my own race. Now, that being said, the conditions of last one standing last year were pretty tough, because it had rained for a few days leading up to it, and the mud was just, I mean, just, it was horrific. And not only that, it did start to rain, part of the way through the day. And then, I don't know, Chris, somebody like built a dam at the top of the hill and like created this river that was then flowing down the hill. It was just bananas. So the trail conditions were not ideal. But what was really interesting to me was the strategies I was seeing around me. And we all know, I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody. We know who won the day, right? It was our buddy Samir. Samir and I were side by side most of the day. And at one point, he runs holding his phone, right, in his hand most of the time, which is just striking to me. But the number of times he dropped it, and like I would like almost step on his phone, was so interesting to me. But in the end, seeing his outcome and thinking to myself, Heidi, you were like football by football with Samir your whole race. Like, oh, okay. So I was kind of on to something with what I was doing, because I was walking the hills. I was, running my pace. The only time I would speed up was on the actual paved road. So that was my strategy as far as pacing. Now, the other thing that's tricky for me is that I tend to have foot issues, and adding wet and mud to that made it really difficult. So I was changing socks almost every backyard, which I probably shouldn't plan to do, because it does take so much time. But because of the conditions, I was having to change socks, and treat my feet every yard. So that was another strategy. And then nutrition was a big strategy for me. So trying to eat real food as much as I could early on, was pretty key as well. So I have some things I'm going to do a little bit differently this coming year, and have some different thoughts. I'm optimistic that the weather is going to be amazing, because if I put it out into the universe, it will happen. It won't be too hot, and it's not going to be wet. It won't be cold because it's May. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to come back and see what I can do. I called it at 24 miles last year, mostly because I just couldn't do the hill again. Like in my head, I did a loop with Jenny Hardy, and she and I talked through like, okay, we'll do one more together. So we did that. She got me through that last loop for sure. And I called it, and I'm disappointed that I didn't start the next yard. I have that regret not going back out, and I've decided that this coming May, I'm not going to not start a yard. I want to be caught out and not make it back in time.
Before we have Carrie share her experience, did you have a crew for that race?
Our good friends, the Heingartners, come out. So Susan had just, gosh, I think she'd just come back from running like the Edinburgh Marathon like the week before. And I had asked her like, hey, I know the timing's not great, but will you and Tracy come out and be our crew for this? And she's like, yeah, sure. And so the night before, when we went to packet pickup and to drop our tent off, Tracy called her and was like, hey, there's still spots. Do you want to do this? And so she registered the night before to do it with us, which I love. I love that about Susan. She's kind of like Carrie, where she's like, yep, I'm all in. So Susan, I think did 3 yards, which we were like, she was just like, I'm just gonna just go out for 1 or 2. But even with those conditions, she did 3. And so she came back and she crewed both Carrie and I think, she and Tracy, and it was pretty awesome.
So Heidi, I want to circle back to the dam that you talked about that ended up flooding the trail. For those of you who don't know, that course, there's not supposed to be a stream in that section of the course, but because we had gotten so much rain overnight, The water had collected and was coming down off the mountain and running through there. And there was about, I don't know, a 3, maybe 4 foot wide stream that at that point that you just had to leap across. But for some reason, people thought that they should add rocks right to the spillover on that point so they could step on the rocks. And they created this giant pool that eventually then flooded. And instead of going down the stream bank, was running right down the trail. So it was like, I don't know, what, 50 yards probably of just soupy, sloppy mud and water in actual running water in one of the steeper sections of the trail. And it made it miserable for, I don't know, 4 or 5 of the yards until somebody finally was like, just kicked the dam over and let the water go back down the
Actually, Chris,
mountain.
it's interesting because I used you as kind of my litmus test of where I was in the yard because we passed each other at the same point on every yard. Like as you were coming down that super slippery, like you were ice skating down that hill because it was just so soupy and muddy. And that I would be like hands on my knees, trucking up, and I'm like, up there he is. And I knew every time, like, okay, you are on your pace and I was on my pace. It was the same place every time.
It really was. We were so consistent. I mean, probably within a few feet for most of those yards. So that was awesome.
I just have one question. Was it Adam who went up there and put the rocks up to create this? Because that really sounds like something he would do.
No, it was Adam adjacent.
Yeah, I know
You know
who
who
it
it was,
was.
Adam?
I'm not gonna mention any names on this podcast, but it starts with a J, right?
And rhymes with
And
ref.
and ends with F. So he
Well,
thought
I
he was
think I know
helping
a
us
couple
out.
of those.
Yeah.
Last name
Yeah.
start with an M.
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
got
So
it.
Carrie,
Definitely Adam adjacent.
why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience at last one standing last year?
Sure. So I had never done a backyard style race before either. I didn't know what to expect. Like I said, we spectated Chris just for a little bit, maybe the year before. And all I knew from that point was, so I was we were near the finish line watching him come in and then he'd be gone for a little bit and then he'd come, but I didn't know what was on the other side of those trees. And so when Heidi said, "Hey, Chris thinks we should do this," I was like, obviously. So let's go. So my whole mindset there for last one standing was just figure it out, right? So I didn't have a really a mileage goal. I think we had just done the half marathon, so I knew I could do at least 3 or 4, and for me it didn't matter if I did more than that or what. I just needed to figure out what is this backyard about? What is the strategy for it? Because again, my strategy for most things is like just go run. So, which is not a strategy, but so I needed to figure out how does this work? What is the best strategy? And I think my anxiety about, am I going to make it back in time or whatever wouldn't let me walk the sections that I probably needed to walk. I have a ton of lessons learned, I think, from 2025 that I can apply in 2026. For me, it was just a good experience to be like, okay, this is what this jazz is about. I can do that. I can handle this. Honestly, it's just about getting into a rhythm, right? Like find your rhythm, not too fast, not too slow, find your rhythm. And so now that I know it, and I guess at some point I was like, my hamstrings really do not want to try to climb up that river again. So, and I don't have to because nobody's making me. So if nobody's forcing me, I can stop whenever I want to stop, right? So I'm like Heidi though for this year. I don't want to. I always want to start the next one. We'll see what it could be that I start the next one and I come back around on that gravel road and I'm like, see you like go on up that hill. That's fine. I'm gonna go right back here to where the gummy bears are. So that that's fine too. But at least start the next one, right? And see what else you have left in the tank. So that's going to be a little bit of my strategy for this year. But really, last year it was just like, I don't know what this is about, and I need to figure out how do you tackle a race like this. So it was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the atmosphere of it.
I love your description of Chris that first year. Like He went into the woods. He just played around for 45, 50 minutes, and then he just popped out. And then the next year, you're like, yeah, I'll do that. Like, I have no idea what he was doing, but you just jump in. And you're like, yeah, he probably told you about the gummy bears or something, right?
Yeah.
The year we came to see Chris, we had our son with us, and he saw the table of snacks and was like, "Oh, what is this magic?" Like, he just had it in his head. You guys just go run in the woods and then just eat snacks? And I'm like, yes, that is what we do.
And is he gonna do it this year?
He has mentioned being curious about doing the 1 mile, but when we told him about what happens when, you reach the 12 hours, that's when he was a little bit like, "Whoa." So, he's still on the fence, but I have a feeling that we might be able to get him on board.
I do want to give you guys a shout out for that first year when I was doing my backyard and you came out. I was coming off an injury, so I was not in the greatest shape, and I had, I think, finished the 4th or 5th yard, and I was ready. I was thinking that might be it. I might have pushed myself a little bit too hard here, and then I saw you guys on the course, and it was an immediate change of mindset. I immediately felt amazing, and I just could not be more appreciative of the extra energy you brought. And it was so awesome because I had no idea you were coming, and you just showed up and you were there out of the blue as I came out of the woods, and it was just awesome. And I think as a result, I got 2 or 3 more yards out of myself and reached a new distance goal for myself. Like, that was the farthest I had ever run. So thank you both for surprising me like that and pushing me on my ultra journey.
Okay, well, now that we've talked about that.
Hey, Katie, I have one question before we move off of 2025.
Okay.
Everyone has talked a lot about Last One Standing, but I know that Heidi and Carrie also participated in Final Countdown, and no one has mentioned that. So I'm a little
Yeah.
curious. Is that because it wasn't as much fun, or just hadn't thought about it?
I didn't love it. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't love it. I don't know what it was. So yeah, I don't know. That wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I don't know. I like structure and discipline and things that are standard, and you keep having to speed up, right? Like that's chaos. I don't want chaos, right? So so I didn't love it. I don't know.
And I will say, as someone who's known Carrie for a little while here, that makes perfect sense to me that you would prefer the formulaic 4 mile, 4 mile, 4 mile,
On the
repeat,
hour.
repeat, repeat.
4 mile on the hour.
Yep.
Don't make me do math. Don't
that
make me run and do math at the same time. Y'all are crazy.
I
How
got
about you,
really
Heidi?
hot at Final Countdown and so I struggle a bit with environmental conditions, and the sun and the heat got to me for sure as we got later as things got faster. So I hung on for longer than I thought I would for sure. But it was funny because I was anxious for some reason about going out for my last run. And so I purposefully slow rolled the last hill to come around as the runners were going out, knowing that everybody was going to be running past me and saying my name or whatever as I came in. But the thing was, Calvin knew what I was doing. So he was standing at the corner and he was like, "Come on, mom. Come on, mom." And I was just like, "Shh, don't tell anyone." Then I'm walking back here. So he almost gave me away. But again, the vibes at Final Countdown were so fun. The atmosphere is super fun. So, like, highly recommend that race, particularly for those early when you have a lot of time, especially for folks who are just kind of curious about it. It's definitely kind of an equalizer in those early rounds so that anybody can give it a try. So since it is kind of a new race format, I think it's definitely worth checking out. But to Carrie's point, it's not for everybody. Um, I think you tap out when you're ready to tap out, and then it was pretty cool to kind of watch it all play out because it literally is pandemonium, right? When you're just running in and then turning around and running back out. So definitely a fun time, but I think it's okay to admit sometimes when a race format might not be for you.
I do want to say though, and Heidi kind of mentioned it. So I didn't think that the rest of the running pack was actually going to let me not start my next lap. Like I thought I had sat down. I sat down outside of the box. I'm like, I'm sitting. I thought they were going to pick me up and like put me in this race because they were so excited for everybody and they just want everybody to go one more, And so I just didn't want to. But that's the vibe I think that Heidi's talking about, right? Like so it's the Tulo vibe. It's the vibe you guys are creating where everybody's included and we just want everybody to succeed. Whatever success looks like for you, we just want you to hit that. And so that while I may not have, stuck it out with that particular race, that vibe persists through all of your guys' events. And so that's critical. And I really did think there was a guy, I don't know who it was, but I thought he was going to pick me up and make me run.
Are you sure that wasn't me?
It wasn't you.
I was going to say he might also be Adam adjacent.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, thank you very much for saying that because that really is the vibe that we try to put on. Like we really want everybody to think that they have a place there and everybody belongs and you don't have to be the winner or the fastest people out there. Like we value the whole gamut of the runners who attend. And when you said that, it really reminded me of, and you said it wasn't necessarily for you because of the race format, but what's really interesting about that race is I think out of all the people, however many people we had show up, normally on the race directing side of things, you can expect like, what is it, Adam, like 15-20% no-show rate? For that race, we only had one person not show up. And I was like, Adam, did we expect like everyone to be here? Because normally that's not what happens. But I think that speaks to the format of the races. You really can come out and just run a few, like if you're not feeling good or you're slightly injured, or if you were signed up and still could come, you could come out and walk almost the whole first lap in the amount of time that you had. So I don't know if that's why we had such a high percentage or if it's just the style of race that it was, but it was really cool that almost everybody who signed up showed up. That vibe that day was really cool. So, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it quite as much, but it does get tough at the end. I will say that I wasn't even supposed to run, and I jumped in at the last second, and every time I was like, "I'm only gonna do 8 miles. That's all that's on my schedule today. So I'm gonna do 8, and then I'm gonna be done." And then I was like, "Well, I can do another one," and I did another one for, like, 10 more miles. So it was it was easy to get, like, caught up and think, "Oh, I can go one more." But the race needed ice, so I had to bow out and go run an errand.
Yeah, save a little bit of that because we'll have to do a podcast just on that race
Yeah.
as registration gets closer to opening. Carrie,
Yeah,
you will
definitely.
not be invited on that podcast. Okay, I'm just kidding. No.
So I think you probably had a lot of people sign up because it's something different, right? So it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
something completely different. And that's kind of what got us there. And I would 100% support. And if you guys needed some help or something like that, man, I'd be because the vibe really is good. Just this style.
No, you're right though. I see what you're saying. Because near the end when I participated also, and like as that time is going down, you do get like anxious, and most people like when they get that anxious feeling, they get stressed out. Like add running on top of that, it's not a very comfortable feeling. So I can see like exactly what you mean. You hit that turnaround and you don't know how much time you have left, or you're anxious about making it back for the last 4 loops. It gets stressful. So I can see how that would not be enjoyable to some people for sure.
I think most people find progression runs just in their training hard. And this is like a whole nother level of progression run, right? Like, so
A 6-hour progression run. Yeah. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and speaking of different type of running events and something that's not for everyone, let's transition into talking about a 50 miler. Heidi, you ran the JFK 50 mile last year. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what drew you to the race? Did you know you were going to run this when you signed up for the last one standing and wanted to kind of kick off training that way? I mean, how does this tie into getting to the start line of JFK?
I will say that never in my wildest dreams would I have pictured myself running JFK. JFK is a race for crazy runners because I have a huge fear of running on the Appalachian Trail. The Appalachian Trail has always been such a big, like, intimidating factor to me as long as I have lived in this area. Carrie loves the Appalachian Trail. She wants to hike on the Appalachian Trail. She wants to run on it. And I'm like, the Appalachian Trail wants to eat me alive. Like, why do you love it so much? So yeah, no, I never imagined that I would do JFK. But that being said, I recognized that it was kind of, as we have heard on this podcast, the Super Bowl of ultra running for folks in this area. Um, I've spectated it a few times. I have had friends who have done it. I went out and saw Chris on the run last year, but something happened. I don't know, somewhere between Last One Standing and Fire on the Mountain, and it really was the, if you can do Fire on the Mountain, you can do JFK. Like the number of people who said that. And Chris, you said that to me several times. And so I was on the fence. Carrie and I had talked, because it's a huge commitment. The training is a huge commitment. Carrie and I had kind of talked about what would work for our, family and what does that look like. And then one night, Carrie and I were out at a happy hour, and Chris texted me and said, the race is almost full. Because I was like, I'm just going to register last minute. Like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to decide last minute. And he said, it's almost full. And I looked at Carrie and I said, oh, what are we going to do? It's almost full. And she's like, well, I think you just have to register. And that's the amazing support that she's always just like, just do the thing. If you want to do it, do the thing. We'll figure it out. And so figuring it out was figuring out how I was going to learn to love running on the Appalachian Trail. So I registered, and that's when we started taking our field trips to the Appalachian Trail and just figuring out. I don't run trails well. What Carrie talks about with her ability to just dance over these rocks, it's incredible to watch her do it. It's incredible. That is not me. I look like, the hippopotamus in Fantasia, is kind of like up on their tiptoes and, skirting along. And she'll say to me, what are you doing? Get off your toes. So I am learning to be a trail runner. I'm figuring it out as I go. So we spent a lot of time preparing for Fire on the Mountain, preparing for JFK, and that just looked like a lot of trail running. So I will say that it's still something that I struggle with. I definitely got a bit stronger. I mean, I had an amazing JFK experience. My AT run couldn't have gone better. I loved it. It was really, the conditions were not great, right? Those of us know it was foggy, it was wet. I was really worried about what that was going to do. I was preparing for, like, okay, I'm going to have a fast canal split because my AT is going to be slow. But in the end, it just went beautifully. I couldn't actually ask for it to have gone better. The thing that I prepared for was climbs. Training for Fire on the Mountain, we trained a lot of climbing, and so I do feel like that's something that I got really good at, and I need to get better at descents. Katie, that meme that you shared last week about, this person, on the trails just looking beautiful and smooth, and there's dancing down. That's me. I mean, even the song in my head is me dancing down the trails, kind of like, please don't fall, please don't fall. So absolutely need to work on descents, but I think right now I could safely say that climbing has become my superpower. So getting through the AT was really the hardest part for me for JFK. And I know that a lot of people are like, that's crazy. It's only what, like 15 miles? Then you still have 35 miles to go. But getting through the AT was the hard part, and then I knew the rest was just going to be left foot, right foot for many hours. I did end up having an interesting kind of situation happen because I never trained an AT run and a canal run like continuous in my training, and I think that did come back to bite me because I ended up having a shoe issue on the canal, where I went from trail ultras to road ultras, and something about the drop gave me some calf pain really early in the canal. So I ended up having to do walking intervals sooner than I had planned. But my amazing sag Carrie showed up out of nowhere with my emergency shoes, and I changed shoes and ended up, making up, very similar to Chris's experience. I ended up making up time on the canal that I wasn't expecting to be able to do, and made it off the canal and onto those rolling hills of the road. I was one of the runners with the vest of the, ended up with the vest, but in the end, I was running splits on the road that I never imagined that I was going to see. And I never imagined that I was going to be looking at or having the race joy actually working in my favor, right? Like it was actually working in my favor on my way between the canal and the finish line. So I loved that last road section. And it's funny because I told you guys this story, but as I was crossing the road to head over to the finish line, I got a cheer in my Race Joy app in my ear, and it was the Rocky theme, and it was like I had just started a walk interval and it was the Rocky theme. And I was like, oh no, I have to run. And I remember dropping my vest and seeing the finish line, and all of my people were up there, and Carrie and Calvin and Susan and Chris was there with Megan, and it was amazing. And it turned out it was Chris who sent me that cheer through the Race Joy app. But I was running with somebody and I said, do you hear that? It's the Rocky theme, because your phone's in your pocket, so everybody around you hears that. So that was really funny.
I was just gonna say, if the AT was the part that you were so concerned with and a little bit of afraid of coming into the JFK, I imagine the feeling you had when you came off of the trail and your feet hit the road at Weaverton. That had to have been the best feeling in the world. I mean, I know it was for me the first couple years, especially. Last year, I was a little more prepared for the trail than I had been in years past, but oh my gosh, when I finally got off the AT at Weaverton, how did you feel when you got there?
So the conga line down Weaverton, I was fully prepared for. I wasn't prepared for how slick it was going to be. It was so slick coming down, and there was an athlete there, were on a stretcher there coming down, so that was really hard to see. But I could hear the announcer, I could hear the crowd. I knew I was so close, and there was one gentleman who I'd kind of stuck with most of the way down through Weaverton, and we got kind of to the bottom, those big flat rocks, and he stepped down and his foot slipped. So yeah, coming onto the road at Weaverton, and just the realization, like, no kidding, that I just did that, and I did it in the time I planned to do it, and I'm going to see Kenny second, like that. And for all of those reasons. So yeah, that was, Katie, that's a really good question, because I didn't anticipate how emotional that was going to be, but I think that may have even been more emotional than the finish line for me, to be honest.
I completely understand that feeling. Definitely. And you just gave me chills whenever you said you're so excited to see Carrie. Like, that is one of the things, like, whenever you have your people waiting for you and you've done this hard part of this huge, hard thing that you're doing. Like, I know Adam, I've never really had crew at that race, but I know Adam's talked about it a lot whenever I was crewing for him. So that was very meaningful for him. And I love hearing that.
Can I just say also, so it was at last one standing that Jeff, sounds like you got a couple of them, but one of them was right in front of us where we were, Chris, where you had us set up. So there was a Jeff right in front of us, and he was the one that was like, y'all need to do Fire on the Mountain. And Heidi was like, woo, tell me more. And then he's the one really that said, hey, like, if you can do Fire on the Mountain, you can do JFK. And Heidi's thought process there, I think maybe was a little bit flawed in the beginning. She said, you know, we're going to get through Fire on the Mountain, and then maybe JFK is my big race for next year. And I was like, well, let's think about this, because if you're trained for a super hard 50K, you got to go just a little bit further on flat. Like, if you're already trained, because then you're going to start over, right? So when the running season, kind of dies down and you have a few months, you know, December or January or something, then you're going to have to start this whole thing over again. Like, you're already trained. So let's rumble. Right. But it was Jeff. So I don't know. He seems to get a lot of shout outs right now. So
Same. that Jeff that talked you into those races is definitely the Rock Jeff we were talking about earlier.
You want to know what though too? So that same Jeff is I ended up running with him for half or a full lap of Rick's run, and that was fantastic. Like, we were just chatting, and that's again another part of the kind of part of the feeling, right? Like, you don't know these people, but you do. Like, you get to know them. You get to know them because you're going to spend hours with them doing this hard thing, right? So he just started chatting me up, and I thought that was pretty cool. So anyway, it's shout out to Jeff.
Right. So we really appreciate all the time that you have shared with us this week. But I do have one last question I'd like to ask before we move into the after party. What's up for 2026? What are your plans? Any big races? How about you, Heidi? Why don't you start?
2026 is going to be a big year because I am going to redo some of my 2025 races. Super excited about Last One Standing and Fire on the Mountain, and obviously going to do JFK. But so my JFK time was fantastic. I'm really happy with my time, but I decided that I could probably step things up a little bit and maybe go for a PR. So I started thinking about hiring a coach. And Carrie was always like, if you're going to hire a coach, you have to have a goal, because obviously you've done a lot yourself without a coach. So you need to have a good goal if you're going to hire a coach. So I did something crazy and put myself in for the lottery for Leadville and didn't tell anybody about that. And thank God I did not get in, because I mean, I was sick to my stomach, because knowing my lottery luck, I was going to get in. So I did not. But at the same time, I had it in my head that maybe I could do a 100-miler. So I did both of those things. I hired a coach and I registered for a 100-miler. So in December, I'm registered for the Devil Dog 100. It's a looped course. So, you know, much less intimidating than a Leadville situation. So it's a 20-ish mile looped course down by Quantico in Virginia. So yeah, so that's my big year, is attempting my first 100-mile.
That's awesome. How about you, Carrie? Any big races planned for this year?
Yeah, I mean, I've got all my Tulu races. Those are my big races, right? So no,
Heck yeah.
I'm really looking forward to all of the races, but again, really looking forward to Fire on the Mountain. Heidi's really the person that can climb mountains super crazy. She's really good. And then, like she said, I like to go fast on the downhill. I'd like to be able to get a little bit faster on the uphill. I think I can gain a couple minutes there. But I loved it so much. So that's kind of, I'm going for Fire on the Mountain, but all the races, and then I'll see whatever else comes. I'm doing. I think I should really know this answer, but I think I'm doing the 50K of the Devil Dog.
That is correct. You are doing the 50K.
I hope it might be a 50 mile. I think it's the 50K. Right. So I'll do that, but I'll just do, you know, I don't know, the things that look fun that come my way outside of the you know, Fire on the Mountain and Last One Standing and Rick's Run, and kind of the good ones, the standard ones right now. So but yeah, I'll keep my options open, see what else comes at us. But those are the big things that Fire on the Mountain's really really that race that kind of spoke to me. So
For a second there, I thought that Heidi was gonna drop some news to
man,
everybody, including Carrie, that she got into the Leadville 100 because Carrie's face when you said that.
so she
Well,
did
I was gonna.
story.
Okay.
She did not tell anybody. And then and she's like, listen, by the way. And I was like, this isn't a by the way conversation. So I'm with her percent. I will sag all day long. Well, for more than a day if necessary. But like I gotta know, like I'm a planner. Listen. Again, let's go back to Army basics, right? Structure and discipline. I'm a planner. I'm gonna have her meals mapped out for days, right? So like that's just not something we drop on somebody.
Well, I was gonna comment on I wish we had video because of your face. That Carrie, I completely like. I I felt the reaction that you just had to her telling that story because that's the same thing that Adam does to me. He'll like have something big planned or then he'll be like, I have to tell you something. I have this idea or I signed up for this race or I think here just look at this list of goals I have. Just look at number 6 and he'll have me read it and then that's how I know like he's about ready to drop something on me.
So she told me between the time that she put in for the lottery and then the time that the lottery came out, some point in there she told me, and I was like, okay. So then we watched some YouTube videos on people who have run Leadville, and I'm watching the crew. She's watching the runner. I'm watching the crews. I was like, here's the thing: we're gonna need Chris. We're gonna need Katie and Adam. We're gonna need this isn't like a
Also
Carrie
a
goes and
second
Cruise
mortgage
Leadville.
to
This is
pay
like
for
we
like
need
the
a whole team, and you're gonna
plane
have to let some.
tickets, the vehicles. Like I'm not kidding. This could have been a disaster. Yeah, we would have.
We'd have made it
Yeah.
happen though, because why not? You know what I mean? Like, you want it? Let's go. Let's go.
Well, I love that. I was gonna end in my final comment to kind of summarize what I loved about talking to you guys tonight was just the support. You guys mentioned it early, you've mentioned it late. It's kind of been a running theme. And like at the beginning, when you talked about how you weren't running the same paces, you weren't running together, but you were still supportive of each other. And I know when Heidi's running, Carrie, you're out there crewing sometimes, and even when you're both running the races, you have each other there. So I just love seeing that. And I think that's important, being that this is February and the running couple series, is that even for the couples out there who aren't both runners, that really is an important aspect of it, is that support level. So I love that you talked about that today.
All right. Well, this has been a ton of fun. I really, really enjoyed this entire conversation. Before we get to the after party, Chris, what did your Bud Light turn into? It's a lot darker now.
It is indeed. As I mentioned, the Bud Light was just a pregame beer. I'm drinking a Coffee Mistress, which is an ale brewed with Firehouse coffee from Saucony Creek Brewing. A little bit different from a Bud Light.
That sounds really, really good. All right, so Heidi and Carrie, how the after party works is I'll just ask you like a this or that question, and the idea is you just give me a 1 or 2 word answer, and no need to explain it, and then we'll just kind of go on to the next question. So we'll start with Heidi, and then Carrie, you can answer second. So the first question I have for you is music or no music?
Books.
All right, Garmin or Koros?
Garmin.
Garmin.
Race medals, do you display them or throw them in a drawer?
Display.
Display.
All right, favorite race distance?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think I'm gonna go with trail 10K.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say trail 50K.
Okay, perfect. Least favorite race distance?
Marathon.
5K.
That's mine too. All right, what's harder, the first mile or the last mile of a run?
First mile and 100%.
First mile. Yeah.
All right, we got 3 more. Coffee before a run, yes or no?
This is going to shock everybody. I do not coffee before a run.
I don't coffee ever. I don't drink coffee.
Okay.
Wait. Time out.
Chris, don't break the
Heidi, are you
rules on me.
serious?
She
I'm
is.
serious. Very infrequently coffee before a run.
So only after.
I am a huge coffee after run. I mean,
All
I'm
right.
coffee almost always, but like before a run could be a disaster as far as, access to bathrooms when you're ladies of a certain age.
Fair.
Fair enough.
All right, two more. I think we answered this one earlier, but run together or run alone?
Together.
Together.
Yep. And then last one, I think I know the answer to this one too, but treadmill or outside?
I'm a treadmill.
I have no preference. I would say
Okay.
outside. I'd say outside. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Chris, Katie, any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
I kind of did the last thoughts thing before the after party. Sorry if I jumped the gun on that.
That's okay.
No, this has been a ton of fun. Like I know we don't do video on these podcasts, but I think if we did, people would be like, "What's wrong with his face? He's only stuck smiling." Like this has been a lot of fun. So thanks, guys. We really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us. This was great.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all for today's episode of Tales on the Towpath. Thanks for joining us on another run down memory lane and along the C&O. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to follow, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep your pace steady and your stories flowing.